In September 2024, Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, the main gateway into East Africa, became the center of mass demonstrations. Flights were grounded. The country's busiest hub came to a complete standstill. The trigger, a revelation that Kenya's government was about to hand JKIA to India's Adani Group, a controversial 30-year build, operate, transfer deal that critics called nothing less than selling off a national asset. The courts got involved, and in November 2024, just days after the US Department of Justice indicted Gautam Adani himself on fraud and bribery charges, the government cancelled the deal. Kenya had been right to push back, and for a moment, it looked like the protests had worked. But the airport still needed expanding. Fast forward to June 2026, almost 2 years later, and the JKIA expansion contract was awarded to a brand new consortium. Price tag $2.9 billion, roughly 375 billion shillings. That's over $1 billion more than what Adani had offered for the exact same expansion on the exact same airport. The local joint venture partner is a company registered right here in Kenya. Its sole owner, a flashy Zimbabwean tycoon with a fraud conviction and a long, well-documented history of controversial government tenders. In this episode, we're going to look at who Wicknell Chivayo actually is and how a man with no elective position anywhere ended up photographed next to nearly every head of state in the region right before some of the biggest contracts in their countries, and the relationship he has had with Kenya's president long before the deal ever came to light. Be sure to like the video if you enjoy it and subscribe to the channel for more investigative stories from Kenya. Chivayo was born in November 1982 in Chivu, Zimbabwe. He left school when he was just 15. After dropping out, he reportedly got a job as a wages clerk at a local bus company. He later turned to illegal money changing during the height of Zimbabwe's hyperinflation crisis, a time when trading foreign currency was one of the few ways to survive. By his early 20s, he was inside Chikurubi maximum security prison, sentenced to 3 years for fraud back in 2004. He did his time, and then for a few years, his name simply vanished from public record. Then, in 2015, it resurfaced, attached to a company called Intertrek Zimbabwe, and to a $173 million government contract to build a 100-megawatt solar plant in Gwanda. This was one of the most politically sensitive infrastructure projects in a country that was in the middle of a crippling electricity crisis. Intertrek received an advanced payment of roughly $5 million, but the plant was never built. Years later, Parliament inspectors visited the site and found nothing close to what the funding should have produced. Fraud and money laundering charges followed against both Chivayo and Intertrek. The case dragged through Zimbabwe's court for years, delayed, interrupted, reopened. In 2024, Chivayo was acquitted, but by then, a very different Chivayo was already emerging in public. Luxury cars, cash handed out on camera, designer clothes, and a constant stream of content on his social media pages.
Zimbabwe is moving to greater heights. It's going to be the Dubai of Africa, which is why I can buy myself a chain for $200,000, a bracelet for 47,000. It's because the economy is performing, the locals are being supported. Yeah, that is yeah.
Gwanda wasn't a one-off, it was a template for what was to come. In 2024, leaked audio surfaced linking Chivayo to a $100 million Zimbabwe Electoral Commission contract, allegedly channeled through a South African printing firm called Renform. Zimbabwe's Anti-Corruption Commission opened an investigation. 2 of his known associates were arrested and denied bail. Chivayo was never charged. And in December 2025, the commission announced it had found no evidence linking him to the transaction at all. Opposition figures in Kenya have since pointed to similar allegations tying him to electoral material contracts in South Africa and Namibia, though those claims have never been independently substantiated either. In April 2024, 7 months before the Adani deal collapsed, President Ruto traveled to Zimbabwe for a 2-day state visit to officially open the 64th Zimbabwe International Trade Fair in Bulawayo. Photographs from that trip quickly went viral. They show Ruto alongside Zimbabwean President Emmerson Mnangagwa, and right there in the frame, flanked by both presidents, standing close enough to be unmistakable, Wicknell Chivayo. It was their first known meeting. However, it wouldn't be their last. By the time the Adani deal collapsed in November, that photograph was already circulating widely, and over the next 17 months, they would be spotted together at least 6 times, a rhythm that would eventually lead to State House and to a $2.9 billion airport deal. But by then, another question had already surfaced, one that made Chivayo's repeated trips to Kenya even harder to explain. In February 2026, activists Boniface Mwangi leaked a government document from the Directorate of Immigration. It appeared to show that at least 28 foreign nationals had been issued Kenyan diplomatic passports between 2024 and 2026.
Also included on that list is controversial flamboyant Zimbabwean businessman and socialite Wicknell Chivayo, named at the center of massive graft probe in Zimbabwe. He is also a frequent visitor to Kenya, often seen posing for photos with the head of state.
But the leak was out there, and so was Chivayo, entering Kenya, meeting the president, posting the photos. The questions practically wrote themselves, but the answers, they never came. China Communication Construction Company, one of the largest state contractors on earth, had won the JKIA expansion through its subsidiary CRBC, its joint venture partner IMC Construction Kenya, owned by Wicknell Chivayo. The price was $374 billion or $2.9 billion, roughly 55% more than what Adani had offered for the same expansion on the same airport that Kenyans had already fought once to protect. IMC Construction has no public track record in airport construction, none whatsoever, unlike the controversial Adani, who've actually built and operated an airport. And Kenyans still stopped that deal. And they were right. But stopping one deal isn't the same as fixing the system that keeps producing them. For over 1 year, the man now holding a stake in Kenya's busiest airport had been flying into a regional airstrip, sitting in state lodges and posting photographic evidence of exactly how close he was getting, daring anyone in a position to ask the obvious question before the contract was even signed. Let me know your thoughts about this deal in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.